Hi everyone. There are a lot of people here tonight who aren't our usual weekly crew, so I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is John Fields, and I'm the Lydia Cheney and Jim Sokol Endowed Director of AEIVA. And just in case you don't know what AEIVA is, we are a visual arts center located on the campus of the University of Alabama at Birmingham. We present 8 to 10 exhibitions a year, highlighting a mix of regionally, nationally, and internationally acclaimed artists focused almost exclusively on contemporary art. And since opening in 2014, AEIVA has been featured in the New York Times, Huffington Post, The Nation, Raw Vision Magazine, and PBS Canvas, among others. Since the quarantine, AEIVA has been hosting weekly live Zoom events featuring discussions and interviews with artists, curators, galleries, and collectors from all over the country, with guests from many corners of the globe, like we were just discussing. And so for the past several weeks, we've been hosting programming related directly to our current exhibition, and that's sort of the jumping off point for tonight's event. So I thought I would start things off just 3 or 4 minutes by giving you a little bit of a context and a brief overview of the exhibition and some of the artworks that you'll see in the background during the performance to sort of better contextualize the program. And so our current exhibition is called A la Carte, and this exhibit features 37 nationally and internationally renowned contemporary artists whose work utilizes food to explore relevant contemporary social and cultural issues. And so these works are examining the role of food in advertising, activism, food disparities, globalization, sexuality, spirituality, workers' rights, cultural identity, among many, many other topics. And so I always start off talking about the exhibit with this artist here, Mike Boucher, who is an artist based out of Berlin. And so what Mike is doing, Mike outsources the production. Can we go back to that slide, please? Mike outsources the production of his large-scale cheeseburger paintings to artists living in China to address contemporary notions of ownership, consumerism, and globalism in both the art world and the food industry. Okay, next slide, please, Dana. So this is another grouping. And so I'm going to focus on this painting on the far left there. So next slide, Dana. So in his painting titled Seat In, Seat Out, acclaimed chef and visual artist Roscoe Hall blends his knowledge of food and art to illustrate the long protested issue of food deserts within minority communities and the impact of structural racism on access to a nutritious diet. Dana, can we go back, please? On access to a nutritious diet, something that has plagued Birmingham for decades. Created specifically for this exhibit, Hall's work, both as a chef and as a visual artist, also seeks to acknowledge the history of modern soul food in the South and its roots in slavery. Okay, next slide, Dana. This is New York artist Kristine Hurst-Wajszczuk, whose visually complex paintings draw inspirations from some of history's most notable artworks. Through these artworks, Hurst-Wajszczuk reflects on humanity's position on the food chain and the sometimes seemingly arbitrary line we draw to distinguish an animal's role as pet versus food. Okay, the next slide, Dana, please. And then last but not least is artist Emily Eveleth, you see there on the right, who is mostly focused on a singular image for nearly 2 decades, the donut. And so Eveleth masterfully creates her thick and flaky donuts with photorealistic detail. They become fleshy and sexual as the frosting cascades and the custard oozes from the broken center. Eveleth's emphasis on the donut is expressive of the potential to equate our relationship with food in almost sexual or sacred ways. And so I need to do just a little bit more housekeeping right at the end, and then I promise I'm going to stop talking and hand it over to Laura. And so during tonight's performance, we will have everyone's microphone muted to minimize audio interruptions. But if you have any questions or comments during the event, please feel free to utilize the chat function in Zoom, which is at the bottom of your screen. And so we've done, like we were talking about a little while ago, we've done over 50 of these live Zoom events since March. But tonight is definitely uncharted territory for us and definitely a bit of an experiment on our end. We did everything we could to optimize the audio and the video component for tonight, but we're having some serious internet lag. And, I just wanted to kind of remind everyone that the audio and video quality will kind of vary depending on your personal home hardware and internet connection. Um, Sometime in the next week or so, we will upload the full high definition video on AEIVA's YouTube page, so you can go see it there later. And so the musical performances that you're going to see tonight were recently performed live in AEIVA's gallery. We drafted a complex logistical protocol for this session that was vetted and approved through the UAB School of Public Health. The only people present during the recording were the performers, the audio engineer who was stationed outside the galleries, and myself, who actually personally handled the video component, and I was also stationed outside the galleries during the recordings. All the performers elected to wear masks and were placed more than 10 feet apart, and each performance was recorded in a separate gallery. And then, probably most importantly, all participating vocalists were tested for COVID less than 24 hours before the session. And so this was a tremendous amount of work on our end, but we really felt that it was important to have the performers be able to play the pieces in the same room together. And so I just really quickly want to personally thank everyone involved with the production. Our audio engineer, James Bevel, did an amazing job. The performers, Stephen at St. Andrew's Church for loaning us the harpsichord, and of course, Patrick Evans from the Department of Music for trusting us to pull this off. And so I'm going to turn it over to Laura Usiskin, who is the coordinator for this recurring event, and she'll kind of introduce tonight's program and our performers.
Great. Thank you, John. So my name is Laura Usiskin, and I started this series in 2015. We have these concerts once a semester, and we always try to match the music somehow with the art on display. So when John told me that the exhibits were about food and drink, I immediately thought about singers and all of the wonderful songs and arias that are about food and drink. So you will be hearing from 3 vocalists tonight, all of whom are full-time faculty in the Department of Music. And I will tell you off the bat that while I really wanted to touch on some of the more serious issues that the gallery tries to hit at in terms of food deserts and what John was talking about, when it comes to music and food and drink, a lot of it's really fun. So there are multiple drinking songs tonight for you all. There's songs about beef and songs about coffee. So it's a bit of a lighter fare night. And another reason why we went the vocal route is some people may not think about this, but for musicians right now, I'm a cellist. I can put on a mask and I can have a fairly safe, socially distanced rehearsal with other people. But people who use their breath, vocalists, wind players, brass players, they have a much harder time playing and performing right now. So I really wanted to give singers the opportunity to share their music because they have such few opportunities to do so. I think this is maybe the only concert for some of these singers in this time. So I'm so grateful to UAB for helping us figure out a way for them to perform safely, and I'm so excited that they were able to do it. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Emily Jaworski-Koryath, who is our first vocalist of the evening.
And Laura, I forgot to mention one thing. In the chat feature, you can download the PDF of the program if you want to follow along.
Yes, because they're singers, you might want to see the text. Even in English, sometimes it's helpful to have the words. So, thanks, John.
Right, and that's a great segue to the Bernstein La Bonne Cuisine. So, hello, my name is Emily Jaworski-Koryath, and I was joined on this performance by my husband, Tad Koryath, who's watching from the other room, so we could maximize our viewing pleasure. The first group of pieces that we're going to perform for you are the Bernstein La Bonne Cuisine, the texts of which Bernstein actually translated from a French cookbook that was published in the 1880s. They were written in 1947 and premiered in New York in 1948. The first recordings are actually of Bernstein himself and Jenny Terrell, who was a Russian-born mezzo-soprano who was on the faculty at the Juilliard School for many years. And in the dedication on the score, Bernstein referred to her as the only begetter of the songs. The recipes were originally published in French. Bernstein translated them himself into English. and both languages appear in the score. Many French singers will sing them in the original French, but I elected to sing them in English because that's how Bernstein recorded them with Jenny Turrell. And it's really fast and there's a lot of words, and I thought it was interesting enough in English so that hopefully we could catch some of the words. However, if you do try to follow along with the recipes, you will feel a little bit confused. The first one is for plum pudding for approximately 20 people. And there are some questions about the accuracy of the recipe itself because it starts with 11 pounds of grapes. And then you can put in, just any kind of sugar that you want, white or brown or powdered. And if you've ever done any baking at all, you know that those have very different chemical properties and will lead to very mixed results. I guess if you really want to be literal, the closest one is the fourth recipe, rabbit at top speed. However, if you do try to make that one, there are 2 ingredients missing: nutmeg and a splash of brandy. And after the Bernstein, will perform the Tipsy Waltz from the Offenbach operetta La Péricole. And all you really need to know about that is that my character has been at a fantastic dinner party and has maybe accidentally had a little too much of the wine that was very, 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 very good. So I'm maybe taking inventory that perhaps my speech has become a little less focused, but don't tell anyone, it's a secret.
First you take 11 pounds of culprit grapes and then combine with equal parts of extra fine tokens. Be sure they are and then you take a cup or 2 of breadcrumbs into which you melt a pound or 2 of butter, fat, or lard. Then grind the 11 cups of sugar, white or brown or black. A cup of milk and half a cup of Bacardi or bread. 3 Now mustard, powdered cinnamon, and ginger all together, making half a teaspoonful of condiment, which you combine with half a teaspoonful of table salt. Are you too proud to serve your friends an oxtail stew? You're gone, for if you have enough of them, you'll find you can remove the tails which you have used to make the stew, and then you can bread them and grill them and prepare them with a sauce. You'll find them delicious and different and so tempting. Are you too proud to serve your friends an oxtail stew? With breast of chicken, put a chicken to boil, young and tender and sweet, and in the aromana you slice it up into pieces. Then boil the flour and water, and add to it the chicken, then prepare it as a bowl in the manner we described. breast of chicken. When you have a sudden guest, you're in an awful hurry, may I say, here's a meat, the rabbit stew in no time. Take apart the rabbit in the customary way you do, put it in a pot or in a casserole, pour a bowl with all its blood and beef, it's liver mashed. Take half a pound of breast of pork, finely cut as fine as possible, and little onions with some pepper and salt, say 25 or so, a bottle and a half of Varouge. Boil it up, don't waste a minute, on the very hottest fire. Boiled a quarter of an hour or more, the session now will be half of what it was before. Then you carefully apply it, as they do when you order souris en fromager. Oh, God, just add the sauce to the butter, the flour, and mix them all together. And serve. Ah, quel dîner je viens de faire, et quel vin extraordinaire! J'en ai tombé, mais tant que je crois bien que maintenant je suis grise, mais chuch, faut pas qu'on le dise. Faut pas. Si ma parole est un peu vague, si tout marche, je zigzague, et si mon air est égrillard, il ne faut se l'étonner car je suis grise, mais chut, faut pas qu'on le dise. Faut pas.
I think that was fantastic, Emily and Tad. Thank you so much. I think Laura had to step away for a minute, so I think next up on the program is Juan. Would you like to introduce yourself and the song you're going to be performing?
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
When this concert idea was presented to me, I was very excited because those of you who know me or who've seen my Facebook posts know that I'm a huge foodie. I love food, and also I consider alcoholic beverage to be part of the food chain. So I've decided to sing songs that deals with food and as well as the alcoholic beverages. First one is a Korean art song composed in 1952 during the Korean War. And this song is called Dry Pollock. Pollock is a fish that used to be abundantly available in Korea. And and so it was extremely cheap. So it was food for many blue-collar workers and also people with very limited budget. You could basically have like belly full of food for a couple of dollars at that time. And also that goes perfectly with is this Korean drink called soju. This is a really cheap booze that many people drank, and it's the best way to get drunk quickly without paying a lot of money for it. But this is a satirical song that talks about, I guess the poet is talking about the nostalgia of losing traditional values and culture and replaced by industrializations, but also during the war where everything is being destroyed. So in this, the poet himself is talking about how Pollock is being caught and being dried and then turned into snacks. But what he's saying is that it's okay if I sacrifice my body to become a part of your way to sustain your life, but also become a idea for your poetry. And second song I like to sing is a German opera aria by German composer Otto Nicolai. It's from an opera set in Shakespeare's The Merry Wives of Windsor. This is one of the most well-known work by this composer, and also one of the most popular comic opera of the 19th century. This is a song about Sir Falstaff getting dumped into the River Thames, and then he come to a tavern being dried, but he's still bragging how ever since he was a young baby wearing kids' shoes or breastfeeding on mom's breast milk, that he's been a ladies' man, and he's always very popular, and he enjoys drinks, and he loves gambling, and now why don't you join me drinking all this booze? 1, 2, 3, go for it and drink. Enjoy both food and drink songs from 2 different countries in 2 different languages. I would strongly advise, unless you're completely fluent in German or Korean, I strongly advise that you read the English translations being provided in the chat box. Thank you.
바다 밑에서 줄지어 떼지어 찬물을 호흡하고 꼬리나 태구리가 클 대로 갔을 때 내 사랑하는 짝들과 노상 꼬리치며 춤추며 밀려다니다가 어떤 어진 어부의 그물에 걸리어 살기 좋다는 원산 구경이나 이집트의 왕처럼 미라가 됐을 때 어떤 외롭고 가난한 시인이 밤늦게 시를 쓰다가 쇠주를 마실 때 그의 시가 되어도 좋다 그의 안주가 되어도 좋다 짝짝 찢어지어 내 몸은 없어질지라도 내 이름만 남아있으리라 명쾌 명쾌라고 이 세상에 남아 있으리라 Als die klein an der Mutterbrust am Eis dabei Regen und Wind, da war der Sechs schon meine Lust, denn der Regen, der regnet jeglichen Tag. Komm, Hanne, hier, rein mir die Kanne, hier, füll mir den Schnack. Lösch mir der Kilobrand, trinken ist keiner Schand, Bacchus trank auch, ja, Bacchus trank auch. Haltet euch bereit, mag sie killern weit. 1, 2 und 3. Und als ich vertretender Kinderschuh auf einsamer Regen und Wind, da schlossen die Mädel sich vor mir zu, denn der Regen, der regnet jeglichen Tag. Und ist die Tasche leer und für die Flasche leer kommt wir heraus. Glück ist ein Sprödelgas, wer es beim Schoppen fasst, führt es nach Haus, ja. Führt es nach Haus. Haltet euch bereit, mag die Killern weit. 1, 2, 2 und 3.
That was fantastic. I could watch that all day long. Kristine, do you want to introduce we have one more set of performances, and I would love for you to talk us through those.
Sure. Thank you so much. I would love to take this opportunity to thank you again for making this happen, John, and to James Bevel for all he did for sound and putting all the recordings together. It was such a pleasure to make live music again, especially with my friends Laura and Chris and Julianne. I also really want to thank Patrick Evans, our department chair, and Stephen Calvert for his beautiful harpsichord and for all of his tuning. It really takes a lot of babying to bring a harpsichord along. So If Music Be the Food of Love actually exists in 3 different versions. The first version was published in 1692 and the second in 1693. And actually what is known as the first version is probably the second version. So what you're hearing is most likely the second version. They were so similar. The third version was very different and published in 1695. The text comes from the opening scene of Twelfth Night, actually the first 7 lines of text, in which the lover's heart is likened to food. The metaphor of food is used to liken it to heartbreak. Our last selection is from Bach's Coffee Cantata, a secular cantata that's really a miniature comic opera. And in it we meet a narrator, a father, and a daughter. And the father complains about how his daughter never listens to him, especially when he tells her to stop drinking coffee. And she insists on drinking coffee all the time. She even sings a love song to coffee. So he decides that he needs to find her weak spot and figures that her weak spot is probably men. So he offers to find her husband if she will give up coffee. And indeed, she agrees. And in this aria, I thank my dad for such a generous offer and vow to stop drinking coffee. But I'll give away the plot. In the end, we all agree that drinking coffee is a perfectly natural thing to do. So I hope you enjoy these songs, and thanks again for the opportunity to make live music with friends.
your tongue. There's no one music everywhere. Your eyes, your tongue, there's no one music
That was fantastic. And so that's taken us pretty much all the way to the end of our event for this evening. So I just wanted to one more time thank Patrick Evans from the Department of Music and all of the performers for helping us sort of figure out a way to pull this off. I think you all did a really terrific job. It would, of course, be wonderful if we could do this the spring version in person, and that would be fantastic. If not, we will be right back here and we'll do it like this. We'll do it again next time. So I think I just need to say I hope everyone has a really good evening, and another round of applause for all the performers. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.